Team USA wins the gold. Canada comes up short in overtime. We'll break down the Olympic gold medal game and more next on today's Olympic Squad Show.
You are talking puck with the NHL Squad Show. From the Oilers to the Stars, Golden Knights, and the Panthers, the Rangers, Avalanche, and yes, even the Maple Leafs. The Locked On Podcast Network brings together all its local experts to provide the scoops, breakdowns, and comprehensive looks at all the NHL, with plenty of trash talk to go with it. Don't miss the hard hits and glove-dropping hot takes on the Locked On NHL Squad Show. It's time to drop the puck.
Welcome, everybody, to the final Olympic edition of our NHL Squad Show. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On NHL and the Squad Show your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe to Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. And thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. I'm Gil Martin from Locked On Islanders. Today I'm joined by Armando Velez of Locked On Florida Panthers, Zach Berman of Locked On New Jersey Devils, and Eddie Garcia of Locked On LA Kings. Wow, all you guys have teams that I have to say both names for in order to get this one right. But welcome, everybody. And the big news, Team USA in overtime wins the gold over Canada. And guys, were you surprised that Team USA pulled this off?
I wasn't. I actually predicted on our game night preview show that the USA would win 3-2 in overtime. Now, if it was a 7-game series, would I have picked the USA to win? No. And after watching this game, that opinion would stand as well, but that's not what it was. It was one game. There were a lot of things I liked about the USA going into this. I thought Canada had played a lot of hard minutes with some of their better players just to get in here. And you know, again, it's one game. It was certainly possible. I mean, I will admit to being a bit patriotic in my selection, and the fact that it was to the day the Miracle on Ice game as well just kind of felt a little bit like maybe something was in the air for the USA. But no, I'm not surprised. I'm really not. We're certainly going to get into how the game went and all that. But this was not the Miracle on Ice, as they said in the open by Kurt Russell, right? It was David. It was not David versus Goliath. I think he said it was King Kong versus Godzilla. So no, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised.
I picked Canada before to win this, and I'm saying this wearing USA colors, but I said that mostly as in ready to get my heart broken, as just seeing it before. That's why I kind of picked it at the beginning of the tournament. But when you look at the fact that 46 years since the Miracle on Ice, it's also George Washington's birthday, crazy enough, the first president of our nation, and then also the fact that it was Johnny Jr.'s birthday as well. So and the fact that they lifted his jersey and brought his kids there after they won gold, it just felt like it was meant to be, especially having Mike Ruzioni in the intermission report as well. That all the stars aligned for the USA.
You know, coming into this game, I saw the stars aligning, and yet, Armando, you and I are in the same boat. I had my heart ripped out in 2010. Sidney Crosby made me cry. I had my heart ripped out last year. Connor McDavid made me really frustrated. I expected more of the same. I said they were going to lose 2-1 in overtime. Now, weirdly enough, the game itself played out very similarly to how I thought it would play out, where the U.S. would get one early, and then all of a sudden it would just be that nonstop barrage by Canada where they just come in waves again and again and again. But somewhere along the way, maybe middle of the third period, I think it was when McKinnon whiffed on that open look, I kind of had this moment of like, there are a lot of these great chances that Canada's not converting on. And if they keep on playing with fire, I think it's going to burn them if they go into overtime. And, well, that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, if you're Canada, you had your chances. There's no doubt about that. I know that there's been some sour grapes. There's some comments by at least Nathan McKinnon that I saw where he said you can judge who the better team is. And I get where he's coming from. And like I said, if it was a 7-game series, I'd pick Canada, but it wasn't. And that's the format. And they had to get it done on that night, and they didn't. They missed so many opportunities, including from their best players. Michael Celebrini had a breakaway and didn't finish. Connor McDavid had a breakaway, didn't finish. I still don't know how McKinnon whiffed on that one, that wide open net. And then, of course, Connor Hellebuck.
On Devontae's.
Unbelievable.
Right
Absolutely.
there.
Yes, the Devontae's save is one of the greatest saves in a big game I've ever seen. I don't know what the list is, and I know I'm being a prisoner of the moment, but that save in that moment with everything on the line was one of the greatest saves I've ever seen.
He pulled his inner Braden Holtby in 2018 on Alex Tuck, and then Aiden Hill on Nick Cousins in the 23 final. We've seen these moments before with the stick.
No question. Want to welcome in David Morisuti of Locked On Leafs, who has just made it. And David, your thoughts, being obviously Canadian, wanted to get your perspective on the gold medal game.
Why? What happened?
You don't want to know.
Not much.
It's been so distressing. It's been such a distraughting time for Canadians that my freezing rain power went out just as I was getting ready to try to record. I think all of Canada is not just weeping frozen tears in this loss. But yeah, I know it's gut wrenching. It's a gut punch. You play a game where you watch this team control play the whole game, and moments in that third period where you get that pit feeling, like McKinnon misses the net, that Hellebuck save on Taves, the power play late in the game where it looked like they're going to score, but it just was not meant to be, and it just kind of felt like the stars weren't aligning for Canada in the way that it did for the States. So I give full credit to the States. They hung in there. They picked the right moment in overtime. Jack Hughes, what a moment for him. I know there's a lot to be said about what he's been through, but yeah, it hurts. It's not a feeling that Canadian fans have been through tough losses. Not many like this, I'll tell you that.
How much do you think Canada missed Sidney Crosby?
Oh, that you felt at the moment it happened where he left that it all changed, because Crosby's not just a great offensive player. And I think these Olympics showed, when you watch him play, the way he dictates so many facets of the game. That I would say their best player on the draw. Like, the team did not have a guy that they could trust to throw out on the faces other than Horvat, but even then he wasn't to the level that Sid was. The calmness that he plays with, the power play. Yes, the power play didn't lose all of its touch. It did lose some of it, because Sidney Crosby can dish the puck. He can do many things. When you swap out a Sidney Crosby for Sam Reinhart, and Armando, no offense to Sam Reinhart, good player. He's scored a lot of goals. He's not Sidney Crosby.
No way.
I think even he would say that too. And so that, to me, that just the different areas of the game, he could influence in such a small. It's a small thing he does that goes a long way. And Canada missed that.
David, do you have a sense? I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Eddie.
David, do you have a sense? Is there anyone that's kind of getting it more than anyone? I know going into it, there was a lot of scrutiny on Jordan Binnington. I thought he was fine. I don't think he was certainly the reason they lost the game. But is there anyone that's in particular that you're getting a sense of north of the border that is kind of getting a little bit more blame than anybody else?
Blame? Yeah, I did see a few people go after Binnington, and I'm sorry. He may not have made the Hellebuck saves, but he didn't have to. Canada did the best job to make sure that Binnington just had to be good in the moments he needed to be good, and he was. There were some very tough saves he had to make in this game. I actually think it's the depth players, the guys who are kind of brought in for nations that, didn't really carry their weight, in my opinion. Like you look at, Seth Jarvis, Brandon Hagel, players like that, even like Travis Sanheim, like guys who are brought in that you think would be good role players, but the roles they played didn't really factor into the games. Like, McDavid, McKinnon, Celebrini, they were going to bring it every shift. Then they did the Sam Bryan, they did the Bennett, Wilson, I think it was Reinhardt. Like they did that.
Bennett, Wilson, Marchand.
Yeah, and Marchand. They did the nuclear line, they called it.
I'm surprised that Dylan Larkin knows what planet he's on right now after.
Oh my God! I thought he was. Yeah, I thought he was in another planet after that hit. But those guys, at least they had a bit of an identity. The rest of the team kind of were just there. Like Marner had a good tournament. I thought he was pretty good, but that line didn't have as much of an impact when Suzuki wasn't a good enough fill-in for Crosby. He scored the goal that got Canada to the gold medal game, but that was it for Suzuki, right? Mark Stone, pretty quiet after the France game. Like guys like that, they needed them to step up a bit more with Crosby, and those guys didn't really bring it in those moments. You need them to.
Were you surprised at the way they divided the ice time in this game? Because I think for such a deep team, Canada played a little top heavy.
I'm not surprised just because Connor McDavid is not going to just sit. When you have a Connor McDavid on the bench, if he's good to go, you can't tell him no. When those guys, every time they went on the ice, I'm sure the Americans went, okay, like take a breath, right? You have in a tournament, in a game like this, you ride your best players, right? I know the Americans. I'm sure the ice time is probably a little more divided amongst. I'm sure that eventually at some point they did shorten the bench just a tad, but you're riding your best players. That's what Connor McDavid's all about. Armando, you saw it in the 7-game series 2 years in a row.
Yep.
The guy is playing 25 minutes without hesitation. No coach is ever going to tell Connor, yeah, I know we got to get the other guy some ice time. No,
I've seen it 4 years in a row.
Oh yeah, Eddie, yeah.
Like the typical plan is for a McDavid nuclear line is after an icing or right at the end of a PK and get them together.
And we saw that. Every icing, it was, my own. But that's kind of, you ask any coach, you can ask Mike Sullivan. He's probably doing the same exact thing when you have a Connor McDavid. And unfortunately, McDavid, I think it looked like it did catch up to him a little bit. That's a lot to put on one player. But again, you rather lose with your best players playing than saying, maybe they should have played him a little bit more. You don't ever want to have those doubts.
No doubt about that. All right, we've got a lot more to get to on today's show. We'll talk about the MVP debate and more coming up on the Locked On NHL Squad Show. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Ever wanted to experience the NBA Final live and in person? FanDuel is giving you the chance to turn that dream into reality with their NBA sweepstakes. Here's how it works. Use your profit boost on any NBA future, and you'll automatically be entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip for 2. That's right, flights, tickets, the whole experience. If you're already looking at the board and thinking about which team can make a deep run, this is the perfect time to lock it in. Now, futures, I love futures at this time of the year, whether it's picking a team to win the championship or grab a conference title. It adds that extra layer of excitement to every game down the stretch. And now, not only can you pick cash, but it can also send you to the finals. So visit FanDuel.com to get started. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Guys, do you think they got it right with the tournament MVP and why?
No.
Go ahead, Zach.
I think the best player of the tournament was Connor Hellebuck, if I'm going to be completely honest. He's the reason the United States is taking home their first gold since 1980. It almost in a way feels like a reverse J.S. Jaguar from the 03 Cup Finals, where the goalie might not have, in this case, I saw a goalie that not only was the best player in the entire tournament, but had to conquer his own demons, his own narratives. Can this guy perform in big games? Can this guy get this team over the hump? And you're thinking to yourself, he's shot after shot. Oh my gosh, Connor Hellebuck is so unbelievably locked in. When's he going to let in that muffin, that stinker, the one he's going to regret? And just like it's happened in every other big game, when are the wheels going to fall off? And they never did. And then he makes the save on Devon Taves. And I said it before we hit record, the line from Eddie Olczyk, boo, she got it with the paddle. Like, I want that on my tombstone. But
Connor Hellebuck.
I think Connor Hellebuck, the pride of UMass Lowell, deserved MVP in this tournament.
I would agree with that. If things had been, say, equal in the gold medal game somehow, if they had both had great performances, and then you take into account that McDavid did set a record for most points in an Olympics, but it wasn't. McDavid had no points and he was a -2 in the biggest game. And I think that biggest game should play a pretty big factor in who gets the MVP. So I would agree with that.
Connor Hellebuck, 1.18 GAA, 956 save percentage in his 5 games. I mean, and when you're on the winning team, when you saw how many shots, 37 for Canada in this one. I mean, that's quite a 42. Excuse me. I mean, incredible how he was able to make stop after stop, especially because USA, they controlled the play in the first period, but they were just not missing the net. They were missing the net a lot, and then it flipped in the final 40, and your team found a way to get ahead. Play from ahead. That was key in this game as well.
The U.S. was not they were not winning the deserve to win-o-meter if they had this one. To put it bluntly.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that the award was voted on before the first period, so it didn't count the last 2 periods. But that being said, Connor Hellebuck had, I think he finished the tournament with a 5.92 goals saved above expected or above average. Like, he was by far and away the best goaltender. I do agree. Even if you didn't have this performance, you take this performance out, I still think these were tight games the Americans played. The Americans had one game you would consider like a huge, like a couple that were huge blowouts, but like he was solid. There was no question who the top goaltender was for the Americans, or even in this tournament. Look, McDavid, I think a worthy MVP just because of the way he played. But if we're talking about who deserved, the honor more, I do think it was Hellebuck, because McDavid also got named top forward, right? And I guarantee if you ask Connor McDavid, what would he prefer? Does he even? I'm sure he's like, it's almost like the Conn Smythe Trophy he won. Yeah, you won the Conn Smythe, but guess what? You didn't win the thing you really wanted to win. And it's a hard look when you win the MVP, but your team doesn't win in the end. So I think that award should have waited. You at least wait until the second period to do the voting. Like, we're in 2026. That stuff can get done in a minute. So I think if you asked people after the second period, you probably would have gotten more responses towards Hellebuck. I would have liked to have known how close it was too. Like, was it McDavid far and away? Because that also says a lot too. But as the Canadian, I'll say that Connor Hellebuck was worthy of the MVP, and I'm sure you ask Team USA, he's their MVP, even if he doesn't have the award to go with it.
NHL works no differently. They do it 10 minutes for Conn Smythe. They do it 10 minutes left in the third period as well.
I mean,
at least most of the game is over by then.
Yeah, at least you have a better consensus of, like, in the final game where all the marbles, you can at least say for sure, have a little more certainty. If you ask anybody, any of the reporters, if they could do it over again, I guarantee majority of them would say Connor Hellebuyck was deserving of that MVP.
The first thing Jack Hughes said after he was the interview began post game was Connor Hellebuyck won us that hockey game.
Mm-hmm.
I think when the guy who scores the game-winning goal has that to say, I think that means that he was the most valuable player of the game and of the entire tournament.
What do you guys think having the U.S. win both the men's and women's gold and Canada having the silver in both men's and women's competition? How does this impact the program of both nations?
Ooh,
it has to be huge, right? Just all the attention. I mean, I've had people, say to me, it's not worth it to pause the season. It's not worth the risk injury. And this is coming from Kings fans who lost Kevin Fiala, so you can keep that for where from where it's coming from. But I don't know. It's so worth it for the sport of hockey to be put on this stage. And I'm sure everybody here, maybe not David, has stories about people talking to them and texting them about hockey when they normally don't. Family members, like, what time's the game? Tell me about this player or that player. There's no stage like the Olympics. And I understand that it sucks when one of your top players gets hurt. Believe me, coming from a Kings fan. And I get the condensed schedule and pausing the season. I understand all that. But when it's all said and done, there's no stage like this. And for USA Hockey to have both the men and women winning gold, just kids, watching this and consuming this. I mean, how many times in the American broadcast did Eddie Olczyk talk about how the Miracle on Ice team influenced him and a generation of hockey players? I could absolutely see the same thing happening to some extent for hockey in the United States from those two wins.
And for Matthew Tkachuk, even before the game, he said, we're playing for the people who came before us and we're playing for the people after us. And I have a tweet to read for you guys from Craig Custis, which was retweeted today from January 24th, 2011 from US Hockey. And it says, quote, USA Hockey's 8 and under membership has reached 100,000 for the first time ever. And Craig Custis quote tweeted that saying, look out 2026 Olympics.
Nice.
David, how about from a Canadian perspective? How does Canada respond to these silver medal performances in both men's and women's?
The women's one is the one I think a lot more Canadians are showing a bit more concern about, just because it feels like the Americans have really ushered in a nice wave of young talent that the Canadians just haven't really done. There's a lot more questions about that. Look, there are Canadians who are talking about players that weren't brought to these Olympics on the men's side. And, you look at Matthew Schaefer, you look at Bedard, you look at Wyatt Johnston. You can pick so many players that, you can't take everybody at the same time. So, I think the men's one, the concern isn't really there too much. It's more so, it just didn't get the job done. So there isn't this big, I would say angst amongst Canadians, but they are having to hear it now where the Americans are saying they're right there on par. To a degree, like they played they 2 straight tournaments where they took the Canadians to the distance, right? You can't take that away. But I think if you ask Canadians who they believe is still, hockey is still the identity of this country. It is the fabric of this country. But it also goes without saying that Canadian hockey has been through its own sort of mini crisis in terms of they're struggling to get participation. It's getting more expensive. Accessibility has really become a big thing, right? And the Americans have the population advantage that Canada doesn't have either. So now there's the infrastructure within Canada in terms of elite development of athletes is certainly there. Trust me, I've seen it. But it's the question has been raised: is the game as accessible as it needs to be? Connor Hellebuyck didn't play up higher than AA hockey. If you ask a Canadian parent if they think a AA kid would ever get to the NHL, this is no, not at all. So it goes to show maybe, in Canada, you have to kind of rethink how you develop your talent too. Goaltending has now become the question. It's been the question ever since Carey Price, retired. Well, forced retirement.
The words out of my mouth, because the U.S. has a goaltending pipeline that Canada just right now
doesn't have it.
cannot compete with.
What happened?
Canada got coming down? Who does
Quebec
Canada
used to be the goaltending capital of the world?
Who does Canada have coming down the pike right now? Sam Montembeault, Devin Levi.
Not even. I struggle with Devin Levi. Like, you even look at the World Juniors. Like, goaltending at the World Juniors this year wasn't the reason Canada lost. I think it was kind of more so how the team played and the structure in which Canadians play the game at those levels. But it is. We're not hearing about this next great Canadian goaltender. You said Quebec. I would argue the QMJHL has really fallen downhill a bit in terms of quality amongst the three CHL leagues. The WHL, in my opinion, is probably where the best development of goaltending has been happening. But that's going to be the big question in the between now and the next Olympics.
No doubt. All right, we are going to come back. We're going to talk about what happens in 4 years. Should the NHL send players back? We'll talk about that and more next on the Squad Show. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. There's nothing like being in an NBA arena, the crowd, the energy, the moment. Getting tickets, though, that part hasn't always been so simple. That's why Game Time becomes the go-to app for scoring tickets fast without the hassle. It puts the advantage back where it belongs, with the fans. I love seeing the all-in price up front, no surprise fees at checkout, and the view from your seat is key. You get a panoramic view from your seat before you purchase the tickets, so you know exactly what to expect. And zone deals stand out. You choose the section, Game Time picks the seats, and you save. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. That's code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. And remember, it's gametime.co, not gametime.com. Guys, will the NHL be back at the Olympics in 4 years? I think we can say this tournament was a success in a lot of ways, but Kevin Fiala injured, Sidney Crosby injured. That's just two of the guys. And then, the compressed schedule and everything else. You guys alluded to it a little bit earlier, but is it worth it?
Yes.
Eddie, let's start with you.
Yeah, no, yes, it is worth it. It's okay, Zach. I agree with you. As I said, this stage is unlike any other. It's going to be in the French Alps in 2030. I had to look that up, by the way. I didn't know that. So time zone is going to be similar to what it was here. I know that sometimes that's a consideration. I think what the NHL, though, did learn from this year is probably they're going to start the season earlier, try and have not so much of the condensed schedule like they had this year. But other than that, I don't see any reason why. And look, the injury thing, it's just the price of doing business. This is not the first time that John Tavares, as you know, Gil, for the Islanders, was hurt in the Olympics and missed the rest of the season. And it sucked for the Islanders. It sucks for my LA Kings to not have Kevin Fiala for a playoff push. But it's unavoidable in a sport like hockey. It's just the price you pay. You keep your fingers crossed it doesn't happen. And we don't know what the injury is to Sidney Crosby and others. Mikko Rantanen got hurt as well. Who knows? So, but it's just, there's nothing you can do to avoid it. This stage, it's too good for the game to not send NHL players to the Olympics. And of course, they want it. They want it more than anyone. The players have dreamed about this. We saw the passion that they put into it. So there's no doubt in my mind that they absolutely should go.
Dominik Hasek as well. It happened to him in 2006 as one person who got hurt. So this is just it's a contact sport. You can't stop injuries from happening in a contact sport like this. But I dealt with it with Matthew Tkachuk playing the last the play, not coming back until the playoffs, and then torn adductor, sports hernia, and he still made it through. But there was a lot of that question on whether he would play the rest of the season. So that's the risk you take.
I just don't know if you can tell these Olympians no after this year. And for the guys that maybe didn't make the cut or who are too young and are growing into it, like 4 years from now, Connor Bedard, Matthew Schaefer, Cole Caulfield, who maybe should have been there the whole time, maybe the guys that are coming in this year, Gavin McKenna's, your Ivar Stenberg's. How can you tell that class of players, no, we're not going to give you the ability to compete in what the 2026 guys were able to do? You just can't do that.
David, would you favor starting the NHL season maybe a week or 10 days earlier and ending it a week or 10 days later in an Olympic year just to decompress the schedule a little bit?
Absolutely. We're already starting to see training camp and preseason's already going to get cut down too because it's too darn long. Like you tell the NHL players, you want to go and do an all-star game where half of you don't even care to really put the full effort in, or do you want to go play for the Olympics? Because I know, yes, the NHL does the all-star games. It helps the local market. There's money, the revenue potential they can get into. But you see so many people talking about the marketing that the NHL had at their disposal by having their players play in the Olympic tournament. There's the value in that is I can't wait to see what the TV numbers are. Even though the game was at 8:00 on a Sunday morning on the East Eddie, God bless you. I don't know what time you had to wake up to watch this game, but
before the sun.
I'm sorry, but there's just it's too valuable. The NBA doesn't have this problem. The NFL is itching at the bit to be part of the 2028 Summer Games in LA. It's like the NHL. Now I can understand the last Olympics because there's still COVID and there was still a bit of uncertainty around that. Okay, I can understand that one. But 2018, that was huge, like such a missed opportunity. So when you have that much of a layoff between the Olympics, there are other, and it's not just for Canadians, it's not just for Americans, for Sweden, for Finland. Germany finally got to see what their development of their talent has been like for all these years. You're telling me the Germans didn't value seeing their NHL talent at the Olympics? Switzerland, right? Those are the teams, those are the countries that need it, I think, way more than the Americans and the Canadians do. They need to see that the progress within their own nations is there. And so if the NHL mucks this up and finds a way to not go to 2030, maybe it's time to look at other leadership that will actually do what's right for the sport and have these players stay as participants at the Olympics.
Yeah, it was a heck of a tournament. I hope we do see a repeat in 4 years. And wow, what a great time I had watching all of these games. So, guys, join the Everydayer Club for ad-free audio and access to group chat on Discord for your favorite NHL team and more. And now you can use the code DEADLINE ahead of the trade deadline for 1 month free. So check out the link in the show notes for more information. And I want to thank Armando Velez of Locked On Florida Panthers, Eddie Garcia of Locked On LA Kings, David Morisuti of Locked On Leafs, and last but not least, Zach Berman of Locked On New Jersey Devils for joining me. I'm Gil Martin from Locked On Islanders. Hope everyone enjoyed our Olympic squad shows. Have a great day, and we'll see you before the trade deadline.